Hello everyone! In this video, I will share with you 3 amusing stories that I found on Reddit.
For some reason, I was never taught to wash my ass growing up. It also felt weird to touch my own asshole with my bare hands, so I did not. I think I felt that wiping the ass after shitting was good enough, and it felt okay to do it because my fingers were shielded by layers of TP. We did not use washcloths in my household. I'm now 57. I have had a spotless annular vault for decades now, which is the only way I'm able to relate this tale of utmost cringe without collapsing in on myself. Back when I was 18 and in the US Navy, it seemed perfectly normal to avoid that area when showering. And yes, my Devil's Valley was a hot mess. I would constantly get gooey back there, to where it felt like the molten curds of fecal gelatin would start sliding out of my shorts. My solution to this problem was to ball up toilet paper and insert a kind of sanitary napkin in there after pooping. That's right, rather than simply wash my butt, I came up with what I thought was a genius solution of tucking wads of TP back there to tamp down the gooey factor. And hey, it actually worked. I did this often in high school, but now started doing it almost every time I shat. This weird solution resulted in one of the most embarrassing moments of my entire life. I was wearing loose shorts and wrestling around with one of my fellow sailors, as one does. As we wrestled about, with several other sailors cheering us on, my napkin plug popped out and fell to the floor. Instantly, everyone froze and went silent. We all looked at it, trying to determine what exactly we had here. It only took about 10 seconds. One side of the compacted tampon-sized wad was covered in brown rectal gel, the other was white, and it has clearly been compressed within a crack of fetid nature. My wrestling buddy looked at me with shock and said with a deadpan expression, "Why do you have an ass tampon?" I had no good answer. Lucky for me, this incident occurred while I was in radar school, so I only had to endure the jokes and nicknames for a few weeks before I transferred to another school. I kept stuffing napkins up there like normal, but made sure to wear snug-fitting jockey shorts at all times. Problem solved. Fast forward to a year later. Yes, folks, this gets even worse. I was stationed in Southeast Asia, a very hot and humid climate. My napkin plugs, made of cheap one-ply, shipboard septic-friendly TP, would quickly soak through with sweat and fecal curds, and I would have to replace them often. A hassle, but what else was one to do? Wash? Never occurred to me. I started to feel an itch back there. The itch was mildly uncomfortable at first, but over a couple weeks, it became maddening. One night at a dance club in Singapore, all the sweat and movement had me on the brink of insanity with the itching and irritation. I began to feel actual concern for my well-being. While in the club bathroom, I pulled down my pants and looked over my shoulder into the mirror to see what was happening back there. What I saw shook me to my core. My entire ass was covered in red, welted sores, some weeping and scratched open. I looked like some kind of disease victim. Even more concerning was that the closer it got to my anus, the rash got even denser, redder, and scarier. The source appeared to be my brown place. I had to open things up and take a peek. There was no choice here. Slowly, I parted my ass cheeks to gaze into my very own brown eye of Sauron for the first time in my life. My cheeks were almost stuck together from the broken, leaking sores and scabs. The very center, my poor rectum, was like the red eye of a very angry fungal hurricane. Despite my tendency for denial, I immediately thought, I am going to die. It was like something you see in a medical textbook and ask, who lets this happen to themselves? The best description I can think of is severe second-degree burns which have been scratched open and smeared with human feces while leaking pus. The very next morning, I went to the doctor on the ship. I did not mention the whole napkin plug system, which I was very much afraid had contributed to my current issue. I just said, I have an infection back there, I think. Now, on a Navy ship, there's a real doctor, an officer, but the person who preps you is often just a regular dude like you who's a basic med tech right out of boot camp. I will never forget his reaction when I bent over the exam table and pulled down my underwear. God bless him. He tried to play it off like no big deal, but I heard him stifle a deep gag and he immediately left the room, his face as pale as death. The doctor, a seasoned Navy veteran, finally came in to me on full display, and even he was like, oh boy, as he gazed upon the magnificence of my rotting, corpse-like rectal zone. He gave me a tub of antifungal ointment and told me, keep the area very clean, which I immediately started doing.
And since the ointment had to be placed directly on the whole zone, I got very used to touching my most secret area, and soon I was just like all of you, a normal, ass-washing, ass-touching, non-infected man. If you are a young or even an old person reading this with issues regarding personal hygiene, please learn from my lesson. Please.
So this happened a few weeks ago, and I still cringe every time I think about it. There's this girl in my class that I've liked for a while. She's one of those people who's always laughing, super confident, and somehow manages to look good even when she's half asleep in class. We'd been talking casually for a few weeks, jokes, small talk, that kind of thing. And one afternoon, we were walking together to the bus stop after school. It was one of those warm, sunny days, and I was in that rare mood where I actually felt confident. We were talking about random stuff, music, teachers, dumb things from class, and I thought, all right, this is going well. I'm being normal. Don't ruin it. Then I saw it, an empty soda can on the sidewalk, and my brain, for whatever reason, decided this was the moment to be smooth. I thought, I'll just kick it, like casually, not too hard, just a cool little move to show I'm relaxed. So I go for it. But I misjudge the kick completely. Instead of going forward, the can bounces weirdly, hits my ankle, and rolls right between my legs like a failed soccer trick. I stumble trying to catch my balance, and she immediately bursts out laughing. Like full-on, can't even breathe laughing. I tried to play it off, pretending it was intentional, but the more I acted cool, the harder she laughed. I ended up laughing too, just because there was no saving my dignity at that point. We still took the bus together and everything was fine. She was still friendly, but she kept smiling every time she looked at me. And now, I swear, every single time she sees a can on the ground, she glances at me, starts laughing again, and says, "Don't trip this time." At this point, it's an inside joke between us, but deep down, I know she'll never forget that moment. And honestly, neither will I.
Story time. So, my dad and brother are super into computers and gaming. Well, my brother. I think my dad just plays to spend time, but that's besides the point. And my brother gives his old case to my dad and got a bunch of new parts for him. Basically some relatively high-end stuff, including a liquid cooling system. It was a pretty good upgrade from basically a laptop. So after a few months, I'm helping my brother with maintenance on it, and we drain the pipes. We then leave the oil or whatever it was on the desk so my dad remembers to refill it. The problem is, he thinks we left it there on accident and decides to not open up the case or anything. A couple months go by, and I remember him talking about how much lag he's experiencing recently. I chalk it up to him playing more intense games and leave it at that. Then, like 3 months after that, I go up to his room for something completely unrelated, and the first words out of my mouth were, "Dad, what does it smell like melting plastic in here?" As he's blissfully unaware that his computer essentially has heat haze above it while the windows are all open in December. When my brother gets home, we open the thing up and it all makes sense now. Apparently, there was no cap for the computer to shut down at a certain temperature, and my dad kept clicking the OK whenever an alert notification came up. The absolute worst part was we needed A, a new CPU, duh, B, a new motherboard because the CPU literally welded it on,